don't know how to start. Well, the name of this channel is Power of Embodiment. And if there's one thing that my process the last, I don't know, 9 years, something like that, has been teaching me, it's that the only thing you can really trust is the body. And that's why I have this focus on embodiment from many, many different angles, and using a variety of tools, if you will. But the main tool is just being in the body. It's just being natural. And I say this, I don't say this from an intellectual thing, that you can trust the body. I looked over here at a board I have written here, reminders for myself, and I just looked, and the first thing is, I trust the body. It's always doing something meaningful. It's always doing something meaningful. And I used to believe that my body betrayed me. I used to believe that my body was against me. I used to believe that I was a victim of my body. I used to believe that it was breaking down on me, that it was creating problems for me, that it was stealing my life away. I used to believe all of these things about how my body was problematic to me living life. I mean, now when I look and see just the haughty vanity of that, the arrogance of that, it's so arrogant for my mind that only has a ride in this life because of this body, for my ego mind to think that my body is the problem. It's victim mentality. It's a victim mentality that has no place in a meaningful life. Like if you are looking truly to live like the potential of your life, you've got to get out of victim mentality. And I find that what for me was huge, and what I see for the majority of people around me is huge, is feeling like a victim of their own bodies. So when their body has a healing process that most people call sickness or disease, and I don't call it that anymore, when your body is going through a process, a biological process, it is for a reason. There is a meaning to it. There's a reason for it. And that reason started in your psyche. There's a reason that something is happening in your body that looks to you like sickness and disease. And if you just do what I used to do, oh, my body is betraying me, my body is rebelling, my body is attacking me, my body is ruining my life. If you go that way, you are never, ever getting out of where you are. You just can't. Because the fact is that the body is actually focused on your survival and your thrival. And life is through the body. Life is lived through the body. This is the vehicle of life. You do not have life without the body. And it started your life, your personality's life, that it's been given a ride in this life through your vehicle, through your form, this form, which created itself in the womb. It built itself. It went through a folding process of folding tissues, creating more and more complex tissues, creating all of what we partition as systems of the body, which are not separate. They're all connected. Every part of your body has only one focus, which is life. Which includes death, by the way. It does include death, and I think we need to take away the negativity that we put on it. It is part of the breathing in and the breathing out. Everything in life has a rhythm. I was at the coast the last days and watching, like, okay, each day the tide is moving at a different it's coming in at a different time and going out at a different time, and within that the waves are higher or lower. So you have the crests and the troughs of the waves, and that those can be higher, they can be lower, they can be more still, but they're still there. And then you have the rhythm of the tide coming to high tide, then going to low tide. Then you have the rhythm of the full moon that I saw the last days, and when it came up, when the sun went down and the moon came up, and then that rhythm was changing a little bit, so the moon was coming up later and later. Like, there's just rhythm to everything. But when you look at the rhythms, there's always this taking in and this giving out, this breathing in and this breathing out. Look at our bodies, it's the same thing. We don't even think about it. We breathe in and then we breathe out. We take in life and then we let it out. And so there is a life part of the pendulum, and then there's a death part of it. It's part and parcel of living. And I think we need to really integrate that. Just an aside, but that's something we need to look at and say, you're there, death, you're there, and you're not something to be afraid of, because you're part of the life cycle. And the part of us that's immortal doesn't mind anyway. But to have the experience living in this life, we get to have this experience because of the body. Because of the body. And what the body is doing is responding all the time to what's happening in life. And when you are going through a physical symptoms, expression of what is termed disease, or some people like to say dis-ease, or what is called sickness and illness, acute or chronic. When you're going through something like that, you are going through a process that you are only looking at part of the process. You're only looking at part of the cycle of that process, because there are always two phases. And you learn this if you study Germanische Heilkunde. You learn the 5 biological laws which are present in all bodies, all human and animal bodies. These are present 100% of the time. And what you see is that we have biphasal biological programs. So the majority of times that you are having symptoms, you are already in the second phase. You're in the healing phase. You've been through what's called a conflict active phase, and you're in the healing phase. But because we don't understand the reasons why that these are happening, we don't get out of the situations and the relationships and the contexts that bring on the shocks in our life, which bring on these biological programs. We don't get out of them, so that we run these chronically. This is chronic disease. And I see plenty of people around me going through this, and I know I can't say anything because they're not ready. They're not open to the belief that their body is not a problem. If you are stuck in this idea, which I used to be, that I'm a victim of my body, well, that's where you are then. That's where you are. And it's not a judgment, because I was there for a long time. But then you're not open to another idea. You need to go through the process you're going through, and when you're ready, I have some other ideas for you. Some ideas that took me out of chronic pain. Debilitating chronic pain that was taking away my ability to dance, which was my way of making money, and was taking away my ability to walk, to do sport, to live life. And it wasn't my body that was doing that. My body was actually stuck in a healing phase that I wasn't getting out of because of this psyche that was keeping me triggered and triggered and triggered. And it was only when I instinctively changed the narrative around that the healing process could see its way through, finally. And now with studying Germanische Heilkunde, I understand that. And I've been through, in the last year, plenty other biological programs on my own. If I had been to see a doctor and if they had caught it in certain stages, I would have had terrible diagnostics. I would have received very scary diagnosis. I know that because I know what I had. But because of the knowledge of the 5 biological laws, I knew what was happening. I knew I was in a healing phase already. I knew that I needed to not panic. I knew that I needed to trust that my body was doing something meaningful. And I knew that I needed to find the conflict shock so that I could look for any triggers that would make this stay chronic, that would keep it going. And I needed to obliterate them, which meant I needed to do a lot of letting go in my psyche. I needed to let go of certain things. I need to let go of certain expectations. I needed to let go of the need to give concrete examples, the need to be right, the need to have a mental certainty about something. I really had to let that go. In one of the instances, I needed to let go of expectations around a relationship. With another instance, I had to get out of Lisbon and away for a week or two to allow my body to heal and get away from anything that could trigger certain things that were keeping this going in one of my healing phases. So sometimes you need to stop the conversation you're having. It's not, your body is not the problem. Your body is trying to fix something. It's trying to survive and thrive. That's what your body is doing. And your mind keeps getting in the way because you think that you have to keep on this same road, even though it's destroying you. And I know that. I've been there. And the fact is that when your body goes through these processes, what you're given is a beautiful, beautiful opportunity to listen, to shut up, to sit down and to listen, and to really go inside and hear your true self speak to you. And many times what it will say is stop. Stop this thing. Stop. Get out of this relationship. Get out of this job. Stop this. This is not good for you. And we don't want to stop because we don't want to hear that. Because our mind is convinced that we need to prove something, that we need to do something that pleases others, that we need to do something that others are expecting us to do, that we have to have certain experiences that we ourselves have decided that we're not worthy if we don't have, whatever it is. I mean, I can see the 2 big tools that have come to me in the last couple of years for embodiment: human design and Germanische Heilkunde. And putting the 2 together is so powerful. So powerful. Because one, human design says your body is life. Your body is the life. It's your body that you trust. And your mind, you don't listen to it to navigate. You can hear what it says, but you don't listen to it to navigate. You listen to the body. You watch the body. You let the body move. And then Germanische Heilkunde tells me exactly when I'm having these symptoms, I can know exactly why. I can know what happened. I can know, if I can pinpoint what set it off, then I know when it happened. Then I know when I went to healing, how I resolved it. Then I look for the tracks. Then I know how long my healing phase is going to take. I know what's coming. A couple of weeks ago, I went through another strong healing phase. So the second phase, remember, it's biphasal, a biological program. I was in the healing phase already. I don't want to tell you what it is because I'm not ready to share some of these quite publicly yet. If you're close to me, you might hear it, because I know the fear that other people will throw on me by hearing what I'm going through. And so I go through it on my own, quietly alone, learning to not panic. And I went through a strong healing phase a couple of weeks ago, and I knew something was up, and I was watching because I wasn't sure what it was yet. And I went to go teach my Balboa class. I have a private student that I teach a couple times a week. We were dancing, and my hands were like ice, and that was a clue for me. Then I knew I was probably in what's called the epicrisis of the healing phase, because I knew I was already in healing from symptoms that I was having. And on that day, with my hands super cold, that was a clue for me that I had gone from vagatonia, from a vagatonic parasympathetic state where my hands were warm and healing. All of a sudden now they're cold, sympathetic, and I was, all my blood is centralized, so I know I'm going through the middle of that healing crisis or healing phase where you go through an epicrisis. You go through a sympathicatonic state. I knew what was happening. I knew what was about to happen. I went home from teaching that class, and from the knowledge that I had taken in my Germanische Heilkunde studies, but watching how my body decided to deal with that. When I got home, I watched my body make me a whole bunch of coffee. It was really beautiful because it was knowledge that I had mentally, but then I watched my body actually doing it. It wasn't a mental, okay, now I need to make coffee. My body went to do it. Why? It was to strengthen that epicrisis. Because if you can strengthen it with something more sympathicatonic, then what happens next when you go back into the vagatonic stage, you don't go so deep down. And that's always the critical stage where you go into really deep vagatonia. And so I drank a whole lot of coffee, strengthened the sympathetic state I was in. And then I waited. And then it came on, like the age, if you were, the apex of the epicrisis came on, and I had various symptoms. I had some I wasn't expecting, which told me that I had more programs running than I realized. But other ones I was expecting, I knew exactly what to expect. And so I just let it happen and worked on breathing through it, staying calm. And once it was over, I went back to vagatonic, but not so deep because of the coffee I had drunk. And it was just amazing. I was so grateful for the knowledge because of knowing, of seeing, of testing and seeing that I really can trust my body. And Germanische Heilkunde gave me the knowledge that what I was going through, I knew what was happening. I knew why it was happening. I knew what set it off. I knew the timing, more or less. So I knew how long it would take. And then it was just a matter of staying calm through it and waiting till my body finished it, and then watching out for tracks, for these triggers that could keep it chronic. So then I needed to keep vigilant to watch. So I was watching, okay, how am I dealing with this? It had to do with a certain person. How am I dealing with this person? What's the situation now? Am I calm with that person? Am I still triggered with that person? Because I knew if I were still triggered with them, I would probably go through this again. It would stay chronic. So, not giving a lot of the theoretical or practical details of GHK, Germanische Heilkunde, but it has been phenomenal to show me what I've known instinctually for a long time, is that there is always a reason for what your body does. It's not stupid. It's not random. It's not against you. How could it be against you? How could your body be against you? You are your body. You don't have a body, you are. This is you. You are a binary consciousness. That binary consciousness is your personality crystal and it's your design crystal. So it is your mind and it is your form. The two are not separate, even though we can experience them as if they are. They are not. You're just one thing. So how can you be against you? Well, I would say if there's any place where I see more of a battle going on, it's with my mind. But even that I know is still part of me. I mean, I don't want to get lost into lots of what's the word? Mental ideas around it. I just want to share that your body is not against you. Ever. Ever. And so if it's speaking to you through symptomology, through some kind of symptoms, through something chronic, which is the case for a lot of people, if you want to get out of that, it's not going to be at the doctor's office. It's going to be sitting down with yourself with curiosity and asking your body to show you. When I was in the middle of the chronic pain and I finally, it took me a long time to get out of the victim consciousness. It took me a long time to get out of it. But I came to the point that I had to go, well, that victim consciousness isn't working. It doesn't work. So we got to try something else. You know, I'm a 1-3. I'm looking for a solid foundation. And if it's not there, I throw it out. If it's not solid, if I can't put my feet on it, I throw it out. The victim consciousness had to get thrown out because it wasn't going to heal me. It wasn't going to help me. It wasn't going to get me through any of it. Punto final. There's no way it could have. And so I finally got to the point where I surrendered and I got curious. And I just asked my body, okay, what do you want to tell me? What is it? What is it in my life? What is it? And I spent a lot of time quietly being curious with my body. I would do self-massage with massage balls and just, it's like conversation. You're just being curious. I don't, it's not even really necessarily asking word questions. It's just looking at your body. You know, what's happening there? What's happening there? Why is it here? Just being with yourself and opening that curiosity, I think, is so powerful. Because once you are willing to quiet this down a little bit and stop blaming your body for what's happening, and stop blaming yourself too, because you're not broken, you're not a problem. There's no problem. There's no problem. There's nothing broken. There's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with you. It's just that you're at a place where you can choose to learn something new, or you can choose to stay in the old. That's it. You can stay in the old patterns that you've been in, or you have a chance at something new, which is friggin' scary because you don't know what it is. That's mutation. You don't know it until you know it, until it's happening like that. All of a sudden, it's a new direction. All of a sudden, it's a new context, a new city you're living in, a new job, a new way of being, thinking, whatever. It's this newness that is confusing at first because you got to get your bearings in it. But that's normally when you're going through something on a physical level that are strong symptoms, that is a mutational opportunity for you. So my biggest suggestion is stop. Stop what you're doing, because what you're doing is not working. Just stop. And like the poet David White says, stop the conversation you're having and then let yourself sit in the silence a little bit. Let yourself sit with the frequency of curiosity and then watch what emerges from that. You don't have to have the answer. You don't have to have the answer. It's about being willing to ask different questions than you have been. And in that, perhaps you will find what I found, that my body is not broken. My body is not against me. My body is, I'm not a victim of my body, ever, ever. My body does not rebel against me. My body is not in war against me. My body is not being attacked. None of it. None of it. These are precious things that I love to share with those that are open to it. And I know that they're not many, but hopefully there'll be more and more. And I got to witness and support a couple of colleagues and friends the last month as they were going through healing phases. And for me, it's the most beautiful thing. It's the most beautiful thing, was to watch them learn to just trust their bodies when everybody around them would be freaked out, telling them to run to the doctor, telling them to this, that, that. And they sat in the trust with the panic sitting next door, and they chose the trust every single moment. And it was beautiful, beautiful to watch. I mean, I'm getting tears in my eyes because I just think how incredible this form is, and how incredible when we learn to trust it. The authority for life is in the body. It's in the form. It's not in the mind. It's not in the mind. That mind needs to learn to get quieter, and it needs to learn to witness life. Because there's so much magic and there's so much beauty in life if it stops trying to run life and learns to watch